Welcome you all in third lecture of DSR. Next point we discussed that what are the different types of the IS codes used in the steel design. For steel, if the steel is used for structural steel, refer IS 226, IS 2062. Steel for reinforced concrete as per IS 432, IS 1139. Steel for bars and rivets as per IS 1148, IS 1149. Steel for tubes and pipes as per IS 1239. For Code of Practice of Design of Steel Structures, IS 800 2007. And in the first two chapters, based on this IS 800 2007, we go for the design of connections. For size of weld and stresses, use IS code IS 816-1969. For Code of Practice for Design Loads, use IS 875-1987 Part 1 to 5. The stress strain curve for mild steel presents a lot of information necessary to understand how it will behave in a given situation. Therefore, for a steel design method to be satisfactory, it is essential to be convergent with the stress strain relationship of mild steel. Curve OABCDEF as shown in figure represents the stress strain curve when a mild steel specimen is subjected to a gradually increasing tensile load. Various elements of the curve are as follows. OAB represents the straight line curve. The strain produced is proportional to the stress producing it, that is, it obeys Hooke's law. A represents the limit of proportionality, the stress beyond which linear variation ceases. Means up to the point A, the curve is a straight line. After point A, it will start deviating. Point B represents the elastic limit, the maximum stress up to which a specimen regains its original length on removal of the applied load. This stress in general is not measured and B is assumed to be coincident with the A. C' represent the upper lower yield points, the stress at which there is a definite increase in strain without any further increase in stress. The magnitude of stress corresponding to the upper yield point C' depends on the cross-sectional shape of the specimen and the type of equipment used to perform the test. In many of the structural steel hot rolled sections, the upper yield point is not obtained due to residual stresses from the hot rolling process. Hence, it has no practical significance. The stress corresponding to the lower yield point C is the yield stress Fy with a typical magnitude of 250 Newton per mm square for mild steel. The lower yield point is observed if the rate of loading is slow, whereas the upper yield point is observed if the load is applied rapidly. For the region OC', the material is elastic, that is, slope E, this is the Young's modulus, on the average E is 2 into 10 raised to 5 Newton per mm square. The strain at yield stress is about 0.00125. At this point, without increasing the stress, the strain will be increases. And when you perform the tension test on mild steel, in extensometer, when yield point is reaches in a material, the deformation takes place rapidly, that is observed in the extensometer, and at that point we take out the extensometer. CD represents plastic yielding. It is the strain which occurs after yield point with no increase in stress. The point D of a plastic yield range is somewhat variable, but a typical strain is 0.014. The strain in the range CD is thus at least 10 times the strain in yield point. Yielding of steel at a point in a part of steel structure without an increase in stress will cause that part of the structure to be yield locally without stress increase, thus preventing premature failure. This ductility allows the stress in a steel structure to be redistributed. This implies steel structures have a reservoir of plastic strength that enables it to resist the overloads and shocks. D represents the strain hardening. It is a range where additional stress produces additional strain. Strain increases fast with stress till ultimate load is reached. As of today, this portion of the diagram is not being used for the structural design. E represents the ultimate stress. The stress corresponding to ultimate load. The initial slope of this region is about 4% of the Young's modulus. At a strain of at least 0.2, the stress reaches its maximum value E. After reaching the ultimate tensile stress, a localized reduction of a cross section of the specimen called as a necking taken place. Means when the load reaches up to the ultimate point, that is the ultimate load, the cross sectional area of the member start to reduce, and that is called as a neck formation, starting of neck formation. EF represents the ultimate strength of a steel. It is also known as the minimum ultimate tensile strength. Stress falls with a rapid increase in the strength till the specimen fails. Here, when the load reaches to the ultimate point, the pointer moves in the reverse order, that is, the load decreases at the time of failure. F represents the breaking stress, the stress corresponding to the breaking load. After failure, if the fractured surface of the two pieces of the steel specimen is found to form a cup and cone arrangement, it indicates the ductile fracture. Cup and cone type of fracture indicates the ductility of the material. If the material is brittle, it is not cup and cone fracture. Tangentially, it will suddenly break into two parts. The forces that act on a structure are called loads. For the safe design of a structure, it is essential to have a knowledge of the various types of loads and their worst combination to which it may be subjected during its lifespan. First, for the loading calculation, we have to use IS 875 1987. Then, dead load, it is given in IS 875 part 1. Live load given in IS 875 part 2. Wind load IS 875 part 3. Snow load IS 875 part 4. Seismic load IS 1983 2002. Dead load are examples of gravity loads. These are the permanent loads and act vertically downwards. Examples of dead loads are weight of structural elements such as beams, columns, slabs, etc., as well as that of a non-structural element such as floor coverings, false ceilings, sheeting, etc. The dead load of a structure is not known before it is designed. It is so because the exact sizes and weight of the members are not known until the structural analysis is made and the sections for the structural members selected. The dead load is assumed in the beginning or is estimated on the basis of experience. After designing, the assumed dead load is compared with the actual dead load. If the difference is significant, the assumed dead load is revised and the structure is redesigned. Dead load calculations should be also include the superimposed loads that are permanently attached to the structure. Example, partition walls, parapet walls. The loads which keep on changing from time to time are called live loads. It is given in IS 875 part 2. Common examples of such loads in a building are the weight of the persons, weight of movable partitions, dust load and weight of furniture. It depends on the intended use of building. The buildings are classified according to occupancy as under: residential building, business building, educational building, industrial building, mercantile building, storage building, assembly building. Depending upon the number of occupants, the live load intensity will be changed. For example, for the residential building, it may be 3 kilonewton per meter square, and that for the educational buildings or the industrial building, it may be 5 kilonewton per meter square. All exposed structures, irrespective of their heights, are affected by wind forces. As wind blows against a structure, its surface, the outer shell experiences the effect of wind force. Wind exerts pressure or suction on exterior surface of building. For low height structures, it is not that important except that for the uplift of the light roof truss. But for tall structures, this may be significant and requires serious consideration. The wind pressure intensity at any height of the structure depends on the velocity and density of air, shape and height of a structure, topography of the surrounding ground surface, and the angle of wind attack. The force exerted by the horizontal component of wind is to be considered in design of a building, tower, etc. The pressure exerted may be both external and internal. The external pressure will depend on the geographical location of a structure, its height, its proximity to other structures which cause a hindrance to the airflow. That is, if the location of building in the center of the city, obviously it is obstructions to the wind flow, the wind effect is less. But if the location of a building on the open ground, then obviously the effect of wind intensity will be more. The internal wind pressure will depend upon its permeability of a structure. Permeability of a building means the total openings area in the form of doors and windows provided in the structure. If the permeability of a building is less than 5%, it is a low permeability. 5 to 20%, it is a normal permeability, and it is more than 20%, it is a high permeability. If you consider the godown storage, it comes under the low permeability. Normal residential buildings comes under the normal permeability, and for the industries where the number of workers are working at a time more, we have to prefer the high permeability. For the calculation of wind load on structure, IS 875 relates the intensity of wind pressure to the basic minimum wind speed Vb over a short interval of 3 seconds with a 50 years return period for different zones of country. The basic wind speed for any site may be obtained from the appendix. This wind speed is then modified to include the risk level, terrain toughness, height and size of a structure, and local topography. To get the design wind speed Vz at any height for the structure, Vz is equal to Vb into K1 into K2 into K3, where Vz is design wind speed at any height z in meter per second. K1 is called as probability factor or a risk coefficient. K2 terrain height and structure size factor. K3 is a topography factor. The K1 factor, that is a risk coefficient, it is dependent on the class of a structure, that is the importance of the structure. Second, it is dependent on the probable design lifespan of the structure. And third one, it is dependent on the basic wind speed, that is the location of a structure. For important buildings such as hospitals, nuclear power station, or for the military purpose, always the value of K1 will be the more than 1. And for the normal construction general building, the value of K1 it must be less than 1 or equal to 1. The second is the K2, that is the terrain height and structure size factor. The terrain category factor, that is a K2, if you refer, terrain category means the location of our construction site and in the near vicinity area. If the structure is located at the center of city, that is all sides are closed by the construction, then the obstruction height will be the more. Then depending upon the height of obstruction of the surrounding building to the location, the terrain category divided into category 1, 2, 3, 4 also. Second one is the height of a structure and size of a structure. Size of structure means it's a least lateral dimension to the height of structure dimension. Depending that also the value of K2 will be the change. It is called as a class of a building. And third one is the height of a building. Depending upon that, the value of K2 will be the change. K3 is called as a topography factor. Depending upon the ground slope, the value of K3 will be changed. If the ground slope is less than 3 degree, the K3 is taken as a 1. The next we calculate the design wind pressure, that is PD is equal to 0.6 Vz square. And the third step we calculate the design wind force, that is F is equal to CPE minus CPI multiplied by A multiplied by PD. CPE means it is a coefficient of external wind pressure when roof is subjected to the wind pressure from the outside. Then if you imagine the triangular shape of the roof, then when wind is blowing parallel to that roof, then obviously it has a less intensity. But if the wind is blowing at a 90 degree or perpendicular to that roof, the intensity will be more. That is nothing but the coefficient of external wind pressure, CPE. It depends upon the width of the building and height of the building. Similarly, the angle of inclination of a roof. CPI means it is the internal pressure coefficient. Depending upon the openings provided in the building and the direction of a building. If whatever the openings are provided in front of each other, then obviously the whatever wind is coming from one opening go out directly from the second opening. But opening only on one side and the front side will be the block, then obviously that wind will store in the room and it is go in the upward direction towards the truss. Here the intensity will be the change. That means that depending upon the permeability of a building, this coefficient will be the change. A means it is a sloping area, it is not a plan area. Whatever the triangular part is there, that triangular part is nothing but on which area the wind will strike. That area is considered in the calculation, and PD is nothing but the design wind pressure, and whatever value we get here obviously in the Newton per meter square. Snow loads. In the areas of snowfall, an allowance for the snow loads will be taken as per IS 75 part 4. Actual loads caused by snow depends upon the shape of the roof and its capacity to retain the snow. Earthquake load. An earthquake load is defined as a horizontal force produced due to wave-like motion generated by forces in a constant turmoil under the surface layer of the earth, traveling through earth crust. Base shear force that would be generated due to earthquake is VB is equal to AH into W, where W is total vertical load. H is design horizontal seismic coefficient for a regular structure, as H is equal to Z into I SA by G divided by 2 into R, where Z is called as a zone factor, I is called as the importance factor, R is called as a response reduction factor, and SA by G is called as a response acceleration factor. Zone factor. It is defined as a factor to obtain the design spectrum depending upon the perceiving seismic hazards in the zone in which structure is located. Before 2002, the total zones are 5. Now the zone 1 is deleted and only 4 zones are considered in the part, that is zone 2, 3, 4 and 5. Importance factor. Factor used to obtain the design seismic force depending upon the functional use of a structure is known as the importance factor. If it is an industrial building, or if it is a hospital building, or it is for the military purpose, or for any other important point, then obviously the importance factor will be the more. Response reduction factor. It is the factor by which the actual base shear force reduced to obtain the design lateral force. Fundamental natural period. It is the first modal time period of a vibration of a structure. All of you know the motion of pendulum. That is, for one oscillation of a pendulum, whatever the time is required, that we called as a fundamental natural period. Here it is considered as the first modal time period of a vibration of a structure. Response acceleration coefficient. It is based on appropriate fundamental natural periods and mapping of the structure. Thank you.